We're 5 games in, and we've been playing around with what we call the Premiership window with our good friends at Champion Data. So I'm the one that's been allocated. We haven't got the screen in here, so stay with me. I'm going to take us in and show you.
Well, this is the first.
This is the first, I know. Yeah. I wish it wasn't me, but I am doing it. So Premiership window is what this is all about, and at this time of year, I reckon your club just wants to know one or two things. Are we competing for a Premiership, or are we a contender maybe to even play final? So this is where we're at after round 5 in the Premiership window, and there's 4 windows here. This is the window you want to be in. This is the Premiership window. Top 6 for offence, top 6 for defence, and history's your best teacher, boys. I always say that. 15 of the last 17 premiers have been sitting in this window. So right now, there's 2. It's the Sydney Swans and the Essendon Footy Club. So if you're an Essendon fan, right now you're wrapped. Offensively and defensively, you're going really well. If you're a Collingwood fan, a St Kilda fan, you're not too far away. Defensively, really sound. Offensively, not quite there. Melbourne, the #1 offensive team in the competition, but just sit outside the top 6 from a defensive point of view. Crows are going well. Can score, got to get better at defence. We know that the Cats can always score, and the Lions sit in there as well, Brownie, but they need to get better at defending. This is where you don't want to be. So right down here, they're not top 6 for either offence and defence. The Hawks are, unfortunately, 18th in both at the moment. So it's early days, but we'll be able to track this through the course of the year, boys. It'll be interesting to see whether Essendon can stay here, or maybe after round 10 we can see that they've gone this way or that way, or for Essendon fans, hope that they can stay right here. So that's the Premiership window. We're going to keep a close eye on it through the year.
Well, Gaz, you're talking about 15 of 17 premiers. The other 2 that weren't in that quadrant were Western Bulldogs of 16 and Richmond of 2017. Both of them were top 6 defensive sides, but they weren't top 6 offence. So they were over where St Kilda and Collingwood are at the moment, but they won flags from there. So you'd much prefer to be top right and have both of them, but at the moment, you know, if you've got a priority, you've got to get your defence into the top 6 to give yourself that chance.
So no team has ever won the flag, or in the last 17 years, below that horizontal line.
That's
right.
Correct.
Yes.
So any of this jump out of you before I come back into the studio? For me, it was this one here, the Western Bulldogs. We all think it's a pretty powerful and potent offensive team, but they sit here at number 17 for offence.
Yeah, a long way back there, Gaz. And Richmond have flipped their profile. So last year, remember, they outscored everyone. They got scored against, but typically they outscored most. But this year, they've been a bit harder to score against, but they can't score themselves.
Yep. I like where Carlton are, Gaz. I think they've really worked on their defensive profile, and the fact that they're above that line is a great sign. We know, I mean, until the weekend they hadn't lost a game of footy, and they were well beaten by the Crows, but they've really solidified their defensive structures. It's just a matter of getting their balance right, because they've lost a little bit of their stoppage DNA, and we'll cover that later in the show. Right,
so we're going to get right now into St Kilda and Collingwood, who sit right here. The Saints, the #1 defence in the competition, and Collingwood not too far away. Not surprising then, boys, that at three-quarter time it's 6 goals apiece for these 2 sides. Is this going to be a pattern, or are we going to see this change?
Oh, I think both of those sides have got really good structure. I think and the other thing they do well is they balance up pressure on the ball with having great balance in their defence to go and outmark and intercept and go back the other way. And we've seen both of these sides, and Craig McRae described it as, how did he say that it was? That there was basically, there's nowhere to move. He basically described it as, you know, pressure-packed, and that's the type of football you need to get used to against the best defensive side. Yeah,
it was great being there. Fortunate enough to call the game, and a great vantage point, the Adelaide Oval. You're very high up from the commentary box. So, and there was a lack of space. There was a lack of time and space. So the pressure numbers mightn't necessarily have been that high, but there was no time and space for the person that had the ball. So I think that's the reason why there was poor execution on the day. This piece of vision encapsulates both sides' styles. So St Kilda, great running team. You know, Collingwood are a pretty good running team as well, but they get huge numbers to every contest. So all these kicks are under pressure. And the 60 metres leading into there, it's just hit on as well, which is that flowing footy that they play. Absolutely. They'll outnumber you at the contest, and then they've started to move the ball well. They'll spread quickly from that contest. Brad Hill's starting to work his way back into some good football this year. Takes on the riskier kick. But one thing, Collingwood, what they'll do, they play a very aggressive defence. Yep. They'll keep coming forward as defenders, Bucks, and you've got to be brave to get through it. Well, they'll back themselves to stick this tackle. So Ginnivan there at the start, and then Wilson, who should stick that tackle, but they get out, and then St Kilda score. Collingwood usually stick those tackles and it goes back the other way for a score for them. They are so aggressive in their defence to come forward
that both Brisbane and in that edit, St Kilda have taken advantage of getting over the top of that first layer of pressure and letting their forwards get goal side of the Collingwood defenders.
We saw that a bit against Brisbane. So the contest becomes so critically important. They back each other so aggressively, and it helps Nick Dacos, who we'll talk about in a moment, who was stunning again.